Yes, we'll get going. So welcome everyone to our first meeting of the new year. I hope everyone's new year is off to a good start, and we have some, I think, very good news today. So we'll get the FireWise year off to a good start. And I'll just briefly go over the agenda, which Elaine sent out a little earlier. And the first thing on the agenda is Christopher Thompson is going to give us some comments about what's been going on at NCFF in 2021, and more importantly, what we're looking at in 2022. Then we're going to have a short fiscal sponsor update, a semi-legal issue from Chris Warner. And then Eric Hernandez is going to update us on some new information from the Fire Marshal's office. Then we're going to get into some of the meat of today, because the main agenda item is preparing the fire safe councils to make applications for funds from the Dodd fundraiser, which was wildly successful. So there's some big money to distribute. And Joe Nordlinger is going to give us some insight into what kinds of projects the grants committee will be looking for from the fire safe councils. And then Gretchen Hayes and Sherry Gardner are also going to go over the actual application form and some of the nuts and bolts procedures around submitting that. And then we'll have a Q&A, and our talk show host, Elaine Honig, will handle the Q&A. So with that, Christopher, you are up.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and Happy New Year. So one of the questions that I'm often asked is especially when we talk about these grants that we get or funding that we get, is what are we doing to sustain, get a durable revenue source going? And so on that note, I just want everybody to know that that process is underway. We're working feverishly to get a tax ballot, tax measure rather, on the ballot. And this week we've kicked off that process. I'm speaking with various fire chiefs of cities, and we're socializing what our agenda is, and starting to work toward raising the awareness that this is going to happen. It's going to be put on a ballot, and we want it to pass. And this is going to be how we get past these one and done kind of revenue sources, and that we get to a durable revenue source. So I wanted to share that. We've done some polling, and the polling is looking strong, actually stronger than many of the other measures that have been out before the voters in previous years, in terms of a score. So that's very good news. And that the information that we're getting back from voters is that this needs to happen, and that they want to see something happen. So I wanted to share that. I also am pleased that we are here today to talk about how to distribute, about $1 million or more. We're not exactly sure what the amount is going to be, because not all of the sponsors and have sent us their checks, but we're pretty comfortable with $1 million, making that number, and hopefully much more than that. And that's a great position to be in, to decide how we're going to spend this toward education, outreach, fuel mitigation, and some of the things that we've discussed in the past. So that's the reason for this meeting. This is not the one meeting that we're going to have. We might have to have more than one, but this starts that process. So I'll be available for the Q&A part of today's discussion as well. Thank you.
I have a Costco thing with napkins you want to give me.
I don't know if that was a question. I didn't.
No, that was Peter.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Peter talking about Costco napkins.
So who's next?
Christopher, is that, are you finished?
Yep, that's all I have to. I'm going to keep it short because I want. There's a lot of other information that has to be shared today, and I think we're going to be pushing up against our time limit.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Christopher. And Chris, you are.
Thank you. Sure, Jerry, and I'll try to keep it short too. This is just a very short item to kind of reference something that all of us as FSCs know, and I'm also on the board of the foundation. And we know that to the extent that an FSC is not a 501c3 tax exempt entity itself, then these distributions of funds need to be in a way that allows the FSCs, if they aren't otherwise tax exempt, to enjoy the tax exempt status of the foundation. That's called fiscal sponsorship. It's got some paperwork that probably will need to be done. If you are contemplating as an FSC forming your own 501c3 or already have, this wouldn't really apply to you. But for me and Jeff Farmer, for example, we're co-leads on the St. Helena FSC. And to the extent that we're allocated funding, which we're very happy about, or otherwise solicit funding, we want to avoid having that taxable under federal and state tax law. And so we're going to be very happy to have the fiscal sponsorship documented with the foundation. And I think all of the other FSCs that aren't formal tax exempt entities, you probably will want to consider that as well, or want to confirm that as your status. And we'll be providing further guidance on that from the foundation in the next few weeks. That's all I had, Jerry, unless there are any other questions.
Okay, so Christopher, or Chris, is has developed a very short and simple document that will memorialize the fact that an FFC is relying on NCFF for its fiscal sponsorship. So as part of this process of rolling out funds, we will be asking the fire safe councils to sign this short and simple document that will officially set up the fiscal sponsorship, something we've done in the past in a more informal way that we think now with the larger dollars we're dealing with, it makes sense to formalize it with a document.
And we'll be getting a draft of that to you shortly, but don't want to have to spend any more time on this call, because I think, as Christopher said, we want to get to the money itself, get the good news on the funding. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. Great. So, Eric.
All right. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everybody. And hopefully everybody had relaxing holidays. So it's going to be hard to keep it short, but I'll do the best I can. So I took a couple of days off. This is my third year coming into being the Defensible Space Inspector for Napa County. And so I've learned a lot in the past 2 years that I've been here. And obviously, the more and more noise we make with the defensible space and with the fuels reduction projects, there's the more need for education and enforcement around the county. And so I took a couple of days off to kind of plan my 2022 year on how I can best be an asset to our community members. So here's what I've come up with. And I kind of want to let everybody know, just so that everybody's on the same page and know what the goal is for this year. So start off, I drafted a letter. So as everybody knows, the estates, we did an inspection of all the of all the vacant and developed lots at the estates late last year. And so
just to be clear, you're talking about various
estates. I apologize. Yes, the various estates. And so the understanding is that we would come, I would come from behind after the grant was finished with doing the defensible space for all the developed lots, and basically go through, and anybody that's not in compliance, we would enforce. So I just got a letter approved by Chief Martin that will be sent to all the vacant lot owners at the various estates. And basically it states that April 1st is the deadline. That's when we start enforcing. They're going to be the first community that I'll be focusing on this year. So April 1st is the deadline. So for the estates. And so my goal is to go in there with the assistance of the Defensible Space inspectors from the CAL FIRE unit. We'll be able to go through that within a week. And our goal is to identify, and also anybody that's not found in compliance, then we would use our abatement warrants and we'll exercise that. So that's going to be the first thing. Now, the second thing is from there, I'll take some 2-3 weeks off and work on responding to property complaints that I'm getting from the community members. And then after that, once I'm caught up with those complaints, in May, at the beginning of May, I'll move over and I'll start working directly with at the Berryessa Highlands. So same thing as the estates. I'm going to go through there with the DSI inspectors, the Defensible Space inspectors, and we're going to inspect all the properties, including vacant lots. And so I know that one of the challenges that I had last year is that while I'm focusing on one community, I have fire safe councils reaching out to me and different communities asking, can we go here? Can we go there? We need to do a sweep of this community. And so obviously it's just me doing these Defensible Space inspections. And so it's hard for me to tackle and be able to be everywhere at the same time. So what I'm finding is education is key. So what I'm opening up to you and everybody right now is I'm hoping within the next week or two, what I would like,
if you wanted to do.
Everybody, make sure you've got your mute buttons on, please.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, Christopher. What I would like is for use the time between now and April 1st. If you have and you've identified a community or any a small community and you want me to come out with engine companies and do a sweep of basically do consulting work where we come out, we identify hazards, provide scope of works, and give some positive feedback on how to bring your property to compliance, this is the time to do it. So I'm inviting you to contact me directly, and we're committed to coming out to these communities where it's the proactive educational approach that we're going to take between now and April. Once April hits, I'm going to be out and about inspecting these communities, and it's going to be very challenging to manage these two communities with all the paperwork that goes in to getting these abatement warrants. And on top of that, all the complaints that I'm receiving from all over the county. So I'm not saying that I won't be able to commit to doing another community, but right now my focus is this right here. So I just want to let everybody know, feel free to reach out to me. And what I'll be doing closely is I'll be reaching out to, like for instance, some of the department or some of the community leaders, like for instance, Napa City. I talked to Bernie Narvaez, and he has an interest of learning what these shaded fuel breaks are and what type of work is being done out in the county. So I see that we have the mayor of St. Helena here. There's a lot of work that and consulting work that we've done in the county that benefits the city of St. Helena. So I'll be more than happy to do a tour with some of those that some of those that we've been working with. I see a question here. Are you able to do work within the city limits of Calistoga? Unfortunately, no, since the town of Calistoga has its own defensible space requirements and their own jurisdiction. However, anything that's in the unincorporated areas of the county that border or surround the city of Calistoga, I'll be more than happy to. France Valley School Road, for instance. So yeah, just want to throw that out there, and there will be some changes coming. We're just waiting for the CAL FIRE to make some changes to some of the requirements. The 5-foot hardscape is going to be coming out this year. As soon as it does, then we'll be adopting that to our local ordinance as well. So that's the information that I have to share right now.
And Eric, quickly, that 5-foot hardscape, is that going to be for new and existing properties?
So to answer that question, effective July 22nd of 2021, so last year, for all new construction, it already applies, effective January 22nd of 2021. For existing homes, those are going to come. Those are going to be coming in as soon as we make the adoption of that new 5-foot hardscape. So
it's a good idea for our fire safe councils and for the NCFF as a whole to start socializing that information to our members.
Yeah, the best way that I can explain it, and the best way to tackle that, Christopher, is the county already has in place a 30-foot pyrophytic plant species requirement. So we have a list of plants that we consider pyrophytic, highly combustible vegetation. If any plant species that's within 30 feet of a structure, it's basically in violation. So I've been using that as a way to prepare the 5-foot hardscape. So if I see a cypress tree within 5 feet, technically, even though that 5-foot hardscape is not, it's not being enforced yet, technically it is a pyrophytic plant, which it is already in our Muni code. So that's the way that I'm working around it.
So Eric, some people are asking for a better explanation or an explanation of exactly what the 5-foot hardscape means. Can you define that for everyone?
Sure. So basically, when it goes into effect, the 5-foot hardscape means there's no landscaping, regardless of its flammability or not. You can't have any vegetation within 5 feet of any structure. That includes barns and accessory dwelling units and outer buildings. So no vegetation, bared down to the soil or gravel. Gravel would suffice.
Eric, where is that statute or regulation? I had read Napa regulations on the 5-foot and I didn't see that it required only hardscape.
Yeah, it's not in effect. It's not in yet. It will come out this year. It's under the Piper. I'll email it to you. It's called the ember resistant zone, and the purpose of that is to remove that from the remove any vegetation that can catch on fire that's within 5 feet of a structure. If embers are flying and landing near a structure. It's not in yet. Once it is, then I'll send out an email to Christopher and we'll let everybody know, and I'll do a small little presentation about it, but it's not in effect yet.
I also think there's quite a bit of communication and education outreach too, Eric, that we can help you with, which I think is going to be key here. I've seen this type of thing catch a lot of residents by surprise in the past just because they haven't had the knowledge and information. So certainly we can help and hope to help you in 2022 with outreach.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody. I'll be working with, I know that you guys have a Facebook, so I'll be reaching out to the person that, I forgot the name of the person, but.
Harry.
Yes, thank you. I'll be reaching out to you and putting something as soon as we're preparing for it, so that as to best prepare our community members, which I really appreciate that partnership.
So Eric, I don't know if you've seen some of the questions come in while you're talking, but you said it goes into effect July 22nd. Is that correct?
No.
Oh,
So
when does it go into effect?
So we don't have a date yet. We have to wait for the state to enact that regulation. Once the state adopts it or it goes into effect, Napa County has to adopt that into our local ordinance. So there is a process. So it's going to take some time. I was talking to Shauna Bagley, our county counselor, earlier today, and so we don't have a date yet for that. As soon as I have a better understanding, I'll let you guys know. But as
We think it's going to be this year, Eric.
My understanding that it will be at some point this year.
Okay.
But again, that's all the information that I have on the existing homes. When it comes to new construction, keep in mind, I did say April 22nd of 2021. So last year we made an amendment to our local ordinance that now requires that all new construction homes have to abide by that 5-foot hardscape requirement. So that went in effect April 22nd of 2021 for new construction only.
And can you please specify again, is that everywhere in Napa County or just in SRA?
Everywhere in the Napa County, with the exception of Calistoga city limits, St. Helena city limits, city of Napa, and American Canyon, town of American Canyon.
And when an ordinance is generally adopted, say when this goes through the state and Napa County, how long do homeowners have to comply?
So typically when we adopt an ordinance, it goes into effect 30 days after we adopt it. So by then I'll have a better understanding, way in at least a month before it goes into effect, or the Board of Supervisors vote on it. I would already start working on putting stuff on our social media venues and pushing it out and preparing our community members.
Okay.
Hey, Eric, do you have any idea what percentage are not in compliance? Because if you have 90% of the clients in the rural areas who are not in compliance, you've got your job for the next 25 years.
So, so here's what I can tell you. The first year that I was here, so this is year 3. The first year that I was here, we did, so last year, the first year we did 900 defensible space inspections. The last year we made improvements and we did a little bit over 1,800 inspections in the entire county. So it's a significant increase, but like Chief Martin and I like to look at it, even though 1,800 is a better number than 900, it's still not 10% of what
That's right.
the total county is. And
That's right.
So, you know, that's where I have to get creative, and that's where I'm coming to you and basically asking, can you make a request for a consulting inspection for your communities, so that between now and April, I can come out and I can have eyes. And it's not only going to be myself. I'm working with our battalion chiefs, and we're going to have engine companies come with me to make the process a lot easier, a lot faster, so that we can basically, if we have a community such as Franz Valley School Road, that was one that we did last year, we're able to do it within a couple of hours with more boots on the ground.
And this is something too that will be included if we get the tax initiative pushed through to bolster the resources for doing this very kind of thing. It's what the chief and I are talking about. So we know we need to grow this. I want to just say two things to Eric. Eric, can you send to us so we can distribute to our group the 30-foot rule that and the list of the pyrophytic plants within that 30-foot rule, and then the 5-foot rule that is already in place? Just get us a copy of that, the one for new construction, so we can distribute that.
Okay, that's going to be in our ordinance. I'll email both of you in the next 5 minutes. I'll email to the group, actually, since I was copied on the emails.
And maybe we can
Thank you.
schedule a future call with Eric to kind of answer additional questions that after this call, maybe an opportunity, because this is a subject that may be.
Yep, I agree.
Reading.
I agree.
Okay, sounds good. And again, I know I don't want to take much of everybody's time, but if any Fire Safety Council has any questions and they want me to, they have any questions, just reach out. Now, one thing that I will say is I see someone included the 0 zone. It's under fire.ca.gov. One thing to understand is, and that's the biggest challenge that I faced year 1, Napa County is separate from CAL FIRE when it comes to defensible space requirements. CAL FIRE has minimum requirements where Napa County has more aggressive requirements. And so when my goal is, when we push out any information about what's in the county, we should be pushing Napa County specific, not CAL FIRE requirements. because we're more aggressive,
Yep.
in other words.
Yeah,
That's-
Eric,
that's a good-
one quick question, because I looked at the Napa County regulation from May of 2021 on this. And it also includes within that 5 feet, approved high moisture content annuals and perennials. So it doesn't seem to require only hardscape. Do you know where that list of approved annuals and perennials is going to be?
Yes, so we have an ordinance and we have guidelines. So we have 2 different documents that I'll email to everybody shortly. And the question is, where is the county's information? Go to our website, www. Actually, I'll type it here. And perfect.
Thanks.
www.countyofnapa.org/fire marshal. So last year, I spent a lot of time updating our website so that everything is reflected on our website. So the idea is anybody that has any questions about defensible space requirements in Napa County, don't send them to CAL FIRE. Send them to this website where we have all the requirements. We have our ordinance guidelines and also additional tips and information on how to be compliant. All right. So again, I know that we can go back and forth, but contact me directly. Everybody has my email and my work cell phone. I'll be more than happy to meet with anybody that has any questions. And please, I urge you to please contact me and start putting those requests for educational consulting inspections in your communities.
Thank you, Eric. A lot of good information. We appreciate it. And now next, Joe Nordlinger is going to talk to us about some guidance on choosing projects for the Dodd funds application. So Joe, if you're ready.
Everybody, yeah, I'm ready. Sorry, I'm juggling a couple calls here. And just for the folks that are in the Whitehall Lane area, Paul Heiselman's on the other call that I'm on, so I'm covering for him on this call too. So to think about sort of guidance for choosing projects, we want folks to think about it in terms of 2 things. One, if you're an established fire safe council with a CWPP, or if you're a nascent fire safe council that's just in the process of getting established, because we may have individuals from that audience. So what I'm going to talk about are sort of some guidance for both those 2 sets of fire safe councils. So for an established fire safe council, where you've got your CWPP, things to think about in terms of submitting your applications for a project are, 1, sort of rough budget guidance. What we would tell you is think about projects that are in the sort of 35 to 40K up to 100,000. And those projects under that sort of guidance, we would not be able to, if all fire safe councils applied for something at that level, at 100K, we wouldn't be in a position to do it. But we want to look for larger projects in addition to some smaller $35,000, $40,000 projects to consider with the money. Ideally, you might think about these, because you have an established CWPP, we would want projects that are prioritized in the CWPP. And generally speaking, your CWPP should have projects that are prioritized in alignment with CAL FIRE's priorities. And CAL FIRE's priorities are county roads first, then limited access roads, which would be like long driveways or private drives or, smaller, more narrow roads. And then the last one would be legacy fire roads, dozer trails, old logging roads, jeep trails, ridgetop roads, and things of that nature. So those are generally CAL FIRE's priorities. Those priorities then would probably be reflected in your CWPP. And we would want folks to be thinking about projects that fit into those priorities. Because this is not money it's not state or federal money, then what that allows us to do is to look at projects that would that might require CEQA. So if we were to use federal funds or state funds, then those are subject to CEQA regulations, CEQA being the California Environmental Quality Act. So if you have a project that might normally require CEQA, then that might be a good project for us to pursue with these funds, because this would, in theory, allow us to spend dollars and not be subject to CEQA. And those would be projects that are along maybe a riparian zone or something like that. Was somebody trying to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, can you define,
completely accurate?
can you define what would fall under CEQA for everyone?
So Gretchen, this was your comment. Do you want to clarify? Because this is what I
think
understood.
that there are still some things that we don't have access to do, like full on, like working in the Napa River. But generally speaking, if we were doing roadside clearing, for example, on private land,
Yeah,
we need to get environmental clearance if we're working on private land with public funds. But private people doing work on private land with their own money or with donated money do not need to go through CEQA. But it doesn't mean that we could still, you know, break massive environmental laws, and it's just
sure.
unlikely to
Yeah,
happen. But so working in the Napa River is a little touchy, because it's still, that is a public good that we would have to coordinate with the flood control district on. But
Sure,
doing
but if you had
vegetation
private,
management should be
right, if you
fine.
had private land near like maybe a gully or something, in theory, that might be something that we, you know, with state or federal land, it would trigger CEQA because this is private money, then we might have some more flexibility there.
Yes.
I think that's sort of the gist of that aspect of it. When you think about priorities, it's important to know that if, for instance, within your fire safe council area, you had a county road, just know that county roads require traffic control. Traffic control eats up a lot of dollars, right? So if you have a fire safe council and you've got county roads in your CWPP and some limited access roads that are important, or some legacy fire roads, your dollars are going to go farther if you're not spending those dollars on traffic control, because traffic control can be very expensive. So I would keep that in mind in terms of maximizing the dollars of your project.
If I could weigh in here, a number of the county roads are going to be covered in the Napa Firewise CWPP and the county 5-year plan. But what your funds could do is help us extend the right-of-way work onto private properties adjacent to that. So there could be a cost benefit there as well. In other words, we would pay for the work in the county right away, and you could extend the work with the donated funds onto private land.
Yep.
So is there a way for you guys to lay out someplace where we would know, or that we could coordinate these things? Because I think a lot of people are going to be feeling like I have no idea what to do in my area.
Well, I think what we should be prepared for is, I don't think this should be a submit an application, it's all or nothing. I think just like we have the opportunity to socialize our grants with CAL FIRE before we actually submit the grant, you know, we would want the fire safe councils to be sort of reaching out to their liaisons to say, here's what we're thinking, so that we can give you some guidance before you go commit to, here's my application. I think we would want to provide that guidance to the extent that people want to take advantage of it.
And I would also emphasize what Joe said earlier on, which is that if you're pulling from your CWPP, this is not new. I mean, we've seen all the CWPPs that are in existence, and we know a lot of what is being discussed for new CWPPs that are not fully in place yet. So it won't be that difficult for us to analyze it.
Yeah.
To that point, Christopher and Joe, I think it's also an opportunity for FSC to work together where they have projects that may overlap with fuel reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this gets to a similar point, and it's a point that Gretchen sort of raised as well, which is that we would be very interested in projects that are leveraging not just the ask for the money in this case, but are going to leverage maybe other match dollars or funds maybe you have in your fire safe council already, or maybe you've got other landowners that are willing to contribute. To the extent that we can maximize the dollars, and have our 30 or 50 or $70,000 be part of something that is going to leverage another 30 or 50 or 70,000. That's obviously, we're looking for extensibility on these dollars and the
And it
ability
can-
to kind of get them to
The
work beyond that.
the projects can also be education and outreach. It can be,
Yeah.
we're not saying it has to just be mitigation, because the money that we have is unlike other dollars where we were told how it can be used and it can't be used any other way. We have a little more flexibility here. We have an obligation to stay within the mission of the organization, but we have some elbow room here.
Yeah. And there's some other talking points, team, that I've got that kind of cover some of those things too. Piper, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, for those of us who have a CWPP that's fairly recent, but predated the glass fire. So there may be projects as a result of that aren't on our CWPP. Can we go outside of the CWPP, or do
Yes.
we need to
Of course.
Yes,
revise this?
And
Yeah.
keep in mind that JC Greenberg and now Tom Connect are going to be on the committee that does the evaluation. So we'll have a lot of influence from Knapp County Fire Department and CAL FIRE.
Yes. They're going to be important kind of voices in the room as far as prioritizing these things.
And
Joe,
so I
one of
think
the
you were
things-
speaking to that in terms of nascent CWPPs. In other words, we're all at different developmental stages in that
Yes.
regard. So
Let me just clear through kind of my remaining items here, and then maybe we can pause and just gather some more questions. So yes, think about sort of the ability to leverage other dollars. That's going to be important for us. Follow CAL FIRE priorities, which should be the same priorities that are in your CWPP. And CAL FIRE is going to be part of sort of helping us to determine and look at some of these things. And to your point, Piper, if you have something that's recent that's not in your CWPP, but it is, a priority, I think that's a totally legitimate thing. We're going to want to understand that. Don't be constrained by your CWPP. Again, this is all for organizations that have a CWPP that are established Fire Safe Council. I would think about the timing of your project. So, if it's a project that involves cutting seasonal grasses, then we want to make sure that the timing is done after the grasses cure, right? So, take that into consideration so that we're not, spending money to do a project that basically 2 months later we don't have the desired effect. So think about the timing of the project as well. That's going to be important. To Christopher's point, our money, while we spend the predominant amount of it towards fuel mitigation, we don't exclusively spend money on fuel mitigation. And we understand that in some cases, there are fire safe councils that have priorities around community outreach and education. And so if you have some discrete project that you want to do that involves an effort to do more community outreach and education within your fire safe council area, whether that's in-person events or, digital media or some signage or whatever, we would want to consider and contemplate those kinds of applications as well. I know several weeks back, we had a call where we talked about different types of programs that fire safe councils could develop and how you could maybe do some, of your own localized fundraising and what kinds of things you could spend money on. And one of the things that we talked about in that call was similar to what we've done in Mount Veeder, which is this Neighbors in Need program for Defensible Space. And what that is those are some dollars that allow you to support specific neighbors in need, somebody who's maybe income challenged, physically challenged, or elderly, to improve defensible space around their property. So a fire safe council might say, hey, we'd like to set up a Neighbors in Need program for our Soda Canyon Fire Safe Council or what, I don't know. And, we'd like X amount of money to do, to set up that kind of a program. So that similarly could be something that you could apply for with this grant application to help you do some localized defensible space work and support folks who are in need in your communities who are either, vulnerable to a wildland fire or present a vulnerability in the event that, their home is an ignition point or something like that. So those are some ideas about organizations that are established FSCs with a CWPP. With respect to fire safe councils that are in the nascent stage where you do not have a fire risk assessment, you do not have a CWPP, I think it's important that you think about the fact that Napa Firewise is interested in taking some of these dollars to help kind of, get you up and running. And so we would be looking for opportunities to help fund your fire risk assessment, or to help fund the transition of your fire risk assessment, the translation of that document into your community wildfire protection plan. So I think similarly, if you are a new fire safe council, nascent, kind of in the early stand-up stage, then you might need some more community outreach and education funds to really go out and get your community involved, to build your steering committee or your kind of leadership organization, or to start to gather data about who is in your community. And so those would be things for nascent fire safe councils to potentially submit an application for, that Napa Firewise could say, hey, we would be willing to fund, 10, 15, 20,000, 5,000, whatever, to help you kind of get up and running and really establish yourselves as a fire safe council.
Hey,
So
Joe,
why don't I kind of pause there, or go ahead.
quick question on that. So if I'm a fire safe council and I'm nascent, how would I spend 20K? Is there a roadmap that we can look at that would say, hey, this is the best way to help you stand up?
Well, so we know that in general, a fire risk assessment can cost anywhere from sort of 3,000 to 10,000, depending on sort of how much territorial area there is, et cetera. So I think if you were a nascent fire safe council and you don't have a CWP, you don't have a fire risk assessment, then you might be submitting an application that's saying, hey, we are community XYZ, we want to establish a fire safe council, and we know we need a fire risk assessment, and our grant application is for Napa Firewise to fund that effort. And you might not know what it's going to cost, but we can help you figure that out. And I think go ahead, Christopher.
And Joe, I think it's also important to note that there are some really good examples of WPPs from Mount Veeder, from Calistoga, from Diamond Mountain, and that's what we're looking at to begin our CWPP for St. Helena. So I think, and there are probably others out there too that are great benchmarks to differences. Community risk assessment.
And similarly, we did fire risk assessments to help Diamond Mountain get going. This other call that I have going on in my other ear is we're launching our fire risk assessment for the kind of Rutherford Bench, Western Hills area. So we've got some good examples if that's something that you're looking for. I think Christopher Thompson, are you trying to say something?
I was just going to say that I'm going to throw a little wrench in the works here, which is basically to say that if there is a viable project that is in your area that would go to great lengths to make it safer, and you don't have your risk assessment done, and you're not, a fully fledged fire safe council, I don't want people to be shy about submitting that, because it might show up in the committee and JC says, hey, that's a really important dozer line that we should go back and scrape before fire season or something like that. So I don't want to be shy about that, because again, we have some flexibility here. We might say, no, let's wait until we get a big picture of the area. But I know there's some areas out in Cyril's neck of the woods, for example, where he's in the process of putting his fire safe council together, but he's got some projects out there that need attendance. So
I think that's a good point. And to that point, to the extent that you want to kind of socialize, hey, here's what we're thinking in advance, we want to set up a means by which we can help kind of field some of those questions early on, so that it's, you got some guidance before you actually submit your application.
Yeah.
Are fire safe councils able to submit applications for more than one project, say a basket of projects that comes up to that dollar range?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, don't feel
So,
constrained to just have one. And you might have a project that's like, hey, we need 5,000 for this community outreach to support this, these two fuel mitigation, or they might not even be connected.
Mm-hmm. And are there any limitations on what the funds, how the funds can be spent? What kind of expenses?
I was going to share something to that end.
Yeah.
Elaine, do you have the table that you could share?
Mm-hmm. Which one do you want?
The one that discussing all these different variables that we could, is the
I
first
have-
slide.
Is that the PowerPoint or the Word?
You can go with open the PowerPoint. It would
There's a PDF and
easier
then there's
for
a
you.
Word document. But there was a PowerPoint and hold on. The other one is FSC allowable expenses. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, let me go share.
And are we going into that part of the presentation? I think we are, Jerry and Joe, probably. Is that appropriate to move along?
Well,
Okay,
So the first slide, not that one, Elaine. This is, I wanted to talk about that, but if we do the first slide.
this one right here.
Yes, and I think this is everything we've been sort of contemplating. If you could zoom in on that for people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, I thought that basically you'd covered all of this, but I thought it would be best if people were looking for ideas or had questions to see if it fit into these things that we talked about, that basically fire safe councils are working on both wildfire preparedness, outreach, and fuel mitigation projects. And they do need to do their own needs assessment, but we had discussed, and I believe this is still true, correct me if I'm wrong, distributing a base amount to all fire safe councils to sort of help with their short-term priorities up to maybe $10,000, and that would go into their restricted accounts, and that any of the expenditures on this page would be eligible for reimbursement. So for example, if you were trying to increase your ability to do your outreach or build your website, recruit more volunteers, if you need software to do that, you will have, like you already do if you've raised donated funds, money in your restricted accounts, and we can simply reimburse you up to that amount for these allowable expenses. The fuel mitigation projects are something that are worth the discussion, like Joe was saying, because there may be synergy with projects that are already done on the ground through NCFF and other grants. There may be opportunities for you to collaborate and get economies of scale. There may be, and hopefully, as Joe was saying, the ability to multiply whatever money you get by doing either cost share programs. I believe the Neighbors in Need program Joe was talking about was that, you know, the landowner pitched in some, you pitched in some, you doubled your money. Or if you identify a foundation or grant source that you would like to apply for the NCFF that we are not pursuing, because of course we're pursuing very large grants that serve the entire county. If you're looking for, I don't know, the Rose Foundation grant, or one of the wineries wants to give the FSC money as a match grant, I have no problem with that. I think you should double your funds any way you can. Just please let us know so that we're not working at cross purposes. I think that's the key thing. What was the other thing? Rebates, cost shares, rebates, and raising funds and grants. I thought that those were all things that you should consider to multiply your funds. Anybody else want to read through this or have any questions about what we had brainstormed about, and if we had left anything out?
I want to ask a question. Obviously, there's a whole series of projects in the 5-year plan. And I'm assuming that we should avoid, or the question is, should we avoid trying to move something up that's already in that plan using these funds? Is this, you know, for projects that are not already identified in the 5-year plan?
So Jerry, I think that's a great question, because I was thinking about that too. I know that Piper had asked some, like Old Lolly Toll Road, for example, I think is out a couple years in the plan. I don't necessarily think it's a problem if we plan to pay for it with Napa County or future Napa County funds. And the reason I say that is projects that we currently have funded with CAL FIRE, ostensibly we can move money around, but it's far more difficult to move money around project to project in a CAL FIRE grant. but we could perhaps augment it, if that makes sense. Or, I don't know, maybe pay to get the environmental done earlier, but generally speaking, all the other projects in the 5-year plan that are yet unfunded could be considered. I would caution though, like we were saying, if, say we assume we have $1 million to distribute, hopefully it will be closer to 1.3 when we have all the revenue in. But if we're starting with $1 million and we give a base amount to up to 20 fire safe councils, I think 4 or 5 of which are going to be nascent and are in progress, that's $200,000, leaving $800,000. We need to keep some for NCFF to manage all of the bank accounts and pay for the insurance that covers the contractors. And just in generally, that is usually about 10%. So if we are overhead total, so we've been holding maybe 100,000 left. That gives us at this point $700,000 for the 15 fire safe councils that I assume will be applying for these funds. One thing that is a big consideration when you asked, should we supplant projects in the 5-year plan, is those are generally quite large. They're 100,000 to $1 million. And so there's an economy of scale that we get with those large projects that we need to pay for mobilization and lots of other things that may not be the best use for these funds because it would gobble up 1/2 to possibly the whole remaining budget. So it's a possibility, especially if you can multiply your funds, but I sort of highly recommend, and maybe we could look at the second slide, Elaine. I know I'm taking over, but I think this is relevant because we've been contemplating this. Can you zoom in on that at all, Elaine? Make it a little bigger, maybe? I don't know. Move it up so we can see the whole slide.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Expand your window to
People can just pinch in on the image.
no, she's not showing the whole thing.
There's a way to go to remove this thing on the side, but I don't know.
It's under view. Go all the way over to view on the top. Nope.
Yeah, view here. Presenter slot view.
You can try that. Try that.
There you
We're gonna do
go.
slide show.
Yay. Now, let's see. There
So
you
here
go.
we go. I've been trying. Hi, everybody. If you haven't met me, I'm Gretchen Hayes. I've been quietly working in the background for 6 months as the executive director. So I've been on a learning curve with you. But I'm trying to answer these questions about how we get things done expeditiously in the county with all the money, working at NCFF, working with you and working with residents. And this was sort of what I came up with in terms of the approach and the scale of the monies that we're going for when it comes specifically to fuel mitigation projects. So the CWVP is large. You know, we're trying to get $43 million in this first year. We have $6 million to spend. And the projects range from 100 to 1 million, 100,000 to $1 million. And they're really focusing on facilitating safe resident evacuation and first responder access throughout the county. So what I tried to do here was show you in orange that we're concentrating on evacuation routes, the main arterials in Napa County. We're doing fuel breaks around communities and subdivisions to protect them from wildland fire. We're also concentrating on large ridgeline fuel breaks, inter-county things. So things that cross across the FSCs in general, large scale, and are critical for firefighting effectiveness. Piper has been running some defensible space pilot projects to help mostly disadvantaged communities, which you don't need to use for your criteria as an FSC. Somebody doesn't necessarily need to be disadvantaged in the way that the state defines disadvantage. So we have been doing that. And then our projects also focus on critical infrastructure. But as Joe would say, if you're just looking at the lines and the circles in orange here, that leaves all the compartments or all the area basically in the county that is not a connector or surrounding a community. That is the Fire Safe Council area, which I've shown here sort of in yellow and green, because the Fire Safe Council takes care of the entire community. But then we need residents to step up individually in their homes, which I've sort of put here as green and yellow. Yellow meaning maybe the Fire Safe Councils help residents who can't afford to do their own defensible space and home hardening. And the green, personal responsibility for doing your defensible space and home hardening. So there is not a huge difference between our mission and your mission. It's just a geographic focus. And so I said that basically you're working to reduce wildfire risk and impacts in your community. You're more focused, you know what you need locally, you can work with your neighborhood, you can work with industry, wineries, residents to raise funds to put in your restricted accounts to serve your community. Oops, can we go back one more, Elaine?
There you go.
And even though you're still focusing on evacuation and firefighter ingress and egress, really you can focus on smaller projects and not the main arterials, but important roads in your neighborhood if necessary, or your personal priorities that you do not think that we are addressing either fast enough, Jerry, like you said, or at the scale that you want in the 5-year plan. And so that's why we need the dialogue between us and you to see where we have overlap and where you can move ahead maybe more swiftly on projects that we will not be addressing for some time. And our motto, of course, is sharing the responsibility. We say community, counties, cities, residents. Well, residents, where they can and where they can afford it, are responsible not just by ordinance, but by value to their community to reduce ignition potential on their own property, do what they can within their means to do defensible space and home hardening. And then the reason this was important for me to sort of game out is we're the main game in town, but we're not the only game in town. If you're thinking like I am as a geographer, fire doesn't respect jurisdictional boundaries. So we need, even though we don't have authority over the land trust property or state parks property, for example, we need to coordinate with our partners in those entities and cities to make sure that we're being effective as a group. And so that's why they're listed here. And Sherry Gardner, as our outreach coordinator, along with the rest of us, are really working with the Napa County Resource Conservation District and the Pre-Fire Working Group to also find synergy in our projects across those boundaries. And I know, for example, that Chris Warner, St. Helena, and Spring Mountain are going to be trying to work with the California State Parks. So I know this doesn't directly answer your question because we're all on a learning curve, but I would like it very much if this was a lateral organization where we all cross-pollinate ideas, but that we really understand where we can have the greatest impact. We are at Napa Firewise working on a county level to support you, but we are also looking at the bigger issues of public safety with public funds. And it really comes to you to protect your neighborhoods because you know them best and work with us to help you do that. And I hope that clarifies things a little bit.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Christopher, this is Jeff Ellsworth, mayor here in St. Helena. I've got to jump off in just a moment, but I had a piece of information I wanted to put out there to the group. If I can just have a minute, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. This is such critical work, and this kind of focus is amazing. I sit on the flood control district board and have been advocating for a conversation with Firewise, with Fish and Wildlife, about how we look at our stream beds and waterways. Christopher Warner got on the flood board this week and pushed that advocacy as well. Scott Sedgley is the chair, Mayor of Napa is the chair, who found consensus with the group to have staff at the flood control board come back in early February, looking at how we can do that cross-pollination, find that overlap. And the fact that we're not in recovery from a major event, fire event last year, I think we can be really proactive this spring. So I just wanted to put out there that that question about waterways and stream beds is moving forward at Flood Control District, and we'll have more information early next month. And I'm staying in close touch with Chris Warner and Jeff Farmer from the St. Helena FSC.
That's great. That's great.
I
That's
could
good
just
news.
mention, thank you, Jeff. I wanted to just say my focus, having worked for 10 years on the Napa River Restoration Project in Rutherford, I have a very good relationship with the Flood Control District, and I do realize it can be a permitting morass, but it is important for everyone to know that the Flood Control District does have a vegetation management programmatic permit for streamside vegetation management. And if you do want to work with them, if you have property along the streams, they do encourage and allow you to do vegetation management in consultation with them, because they're very interested in getting rid of invasive species and those species that harbor glassy winged sharpshooter. But it's just important to have a plan, Stan, so you don't get sideways with the other agencies. And I think
that's exactly what Jeff and I and the St. Helena FSC are pursuing. Gretchen, it's exactly right, because you also have Fish and Game, and so it's going to be a great opportunity with the Flood Control District to have that dialogue and try to move things forward. So it's a great opportunity, and it'll be one of the, Christopher, it'll be one of the key projects as well as key aspects of the risk assessment for the St. Helena FSC.
Yeah, and I just will quickly say, when I first got on the Deer Park Fire Safe Council with Elaine, she and I met with Fish and Wildlife and pursued trying to do mitigation in the creeks and the rivers, and we were literally laughed at that there's no way we're ever going to get a permit. So the fact that we've gone from that to where we are now, job well done. So good job.
Yeah, more to come.
So
Yeah.
I am wondering if we should move on to reviewing the actual application for a moment, and
Sure.
then our Q&A.
Sure.
So
And maybe make sure we get the Q&A, Jerry, because there are a number of questions in the chat I saw.
yeah, so let's take a look at the actual application so people are familiar with it, and then we can get to the Q&A.
The application, this is Sherry Gardner, by the way. And if anyone has questions about the application process or any of this at all, I'm here and I would love to chat with any of you later on as well. So I'll put my contact in the chat, and I'll be sending you copies of the slides and everything from the meeting a little later too. So this application is pretty broad. It's also, most of it's pretty self-explanatory. There are, you can't see them very well, but there are fields you can fill in. So you can just type right into the fields on the form on your computer, or if you prefer, you can print it out and do it by hand as well. So it's just general information, background information, the name of your FSC, the project name for whatever it is you're applying for, or if there are multiple projects, that works too. And then again, pretty straightforward, the location of where the work is going to take place. And then describing the nature of the work, this is based on a form we've used for a while. So if there are various different types of mitigation, fuel mitigation that you're doing, or a few different things, you can put in what percentage of the funds you're applying for will be taken up by those activities. And if none of those activities that are listed encapsulate what you're trying to do, there's a spot to put more information down there, the additional description. And then there's a separate one for egress and ingress along roads with removal of large trees and that kind of work as well. Some of these projects may be maintenance for work that's been done in the past, and you can list that there and when it was done. And then project cost estimates. If you can get an estimate from a vendor, or you have a vendor in mind that you're planning to use, you can list all the contact information there. We will need all of that. NCFF will hold the contract with the vendor for liability reasons. So we'll need that information filled in. And the next page is a little bit of your own accounting. FSC funds currently held on behalf of your FSC. I will also hopefully soon have a report for all of you on where you stand currently. And then again, as has been discussed before, if there are other available funds that you can add to this project, and then the total amount that you're requesting from NCFF for this particular project. And then the total project costs. So again, this is pretty straightforward. We talked a little bit about potentially using the funding that you're requesting as a match for a larger grant or part of another project. So you can put that information in the form as well. And then just how urgent the project that you're looking to fund is on your CWP list.
Or do we have a deadline or?
I think we had said the end of the month. Correct if I'm wrong on that, to turn this in.
So I thought that was to be the initial
yeah, I think we need some more time than
idea that we would socialize or be able to talk about our ideas and do that by the end of the month, but the actual application, we would have a little more time.
Yeah.
Is that still the plan?
Perfect.
I think that's better, Jerry.
Will it be like a draft for us to review by then and then go back and finalize it? Maybe a preliminary draft would make sense, or your list of ideas?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
It'll
people
take a
may
little while.
need a little back and forth with NCFF to really hone in on the best projects. And also it's probably going to take a little time to get some numbers from vendors and maybe some help from NCFF in terms of what vendors we might choose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
I think our first month is for great ideas, right? Christopher and Jerry
Yep.
and Jen is basically not really have everybody slavishly follow all the.
Yeah, I think we want to have people have the opportunity to get their arms around this, but at the same time, we want to try to get the work done before fire season too. So there's
Right.
a little bit of that kind of pressure, but I want to make sure everybody feels comfortable with understanding what they want to get done and then getting this paperwork through.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's the form in a nutshell. If you have any questions about it, it is fairly self-explanatory. It's not too grueling, but there are, I think the hardest part might be deciding what project is most urgent.
And again, feel free to lean on us to help you with that. And if you're up against can't make up your mind or what's the best direction, we can assist in that.
I would like to mention that we are fortunate to have the first year of funding for the 5-year plan. And as Christopher noted, we are working with Napa County potentially to pass a tax. We don't know if it will happen. And we're also pursuing FEMA funding. We also don't know if we're going to get FEMA funding. However, what that means is we do not have set funding yet for years 2 through 5 of the 5-year plan. With the caveat, however, that we do have some state funds at our disposal to use as necessary, either for year 2 or other fuel mitigation projects. The point I wanted to make was, if you study the 5-year plan carefully, starting in year 2, there's $300,000 to $400,000 set aside for FSC projects. Now, these would require CEQA. They still have yet to be defined, but because they would be funded by state or other funds as part of the 5-year plan, they will need CEQA. But this is not like your one and done time, I guess is what I wanted to say. The biggest flexibility you have with these funds is that they don't need to be used for fuel mitigation, whereas most grant funds do. They don't give us grant funds usually for education and outreach or capacity building. They're harder to get for things like that. If you have unmet needs or smaller projects, you can also, they're also generally required, grants are required to have an economy of scale. And so they usually have to be very large. So you have the opportunity to use these donated funds on smaller projects. And crucially, like we said, if they were for fuel mitigation on private land, you would not need CEQA. Whereas if we were using the grant funds in year 2, 3, 4, whatever, they would. So you have quite a bit of flexibility, but it's not your only opportunity to get funding with us in the future. I'm not so sure we'll ever have a fundraiser as big as what Senator Dodd hosted for us. I have to say how grateful I am to all of you participating, and it turned out much better than our wildest dreams, but it was a lot of work. We will have other fundraisers, but it's unlikely that we're going to have the ability to distribute $10,000 a year every single year unless we start a new tradition of large fundraisers, which who knows, maybe we'll do or you do. But I encourage you to team, especially with the vintners and other industries in your neighborhoods, to do fundraising locally, because those are all donated funds and you have a lot of flexibility to get done what you'd like to do in your neighborhoods with those. And we're happy to manage those funds in your restricted accounts. And we're here to help.
So to reiterate, we are expecting everyone to develop their project ideas and talk to NCFF about them and have solidified what they are looking to submit by the end of January, and then actually put the applications in with some hard numbers, some vendor numbers and so forth. And by what date do we want that that written application, that final application in? I assume
Ideally the third week of February, I would imagine, if you want to get started in March.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, February 15th or February 20th.
And you probably should have 2 ideas minimum, just in case your first one does not get funded, depending on, you know, what competition there is. 2 or 3, maybe 1 larger one, 2 smaller ones, just a variety, so that we can get everybody moving and making a difference in their neighborhood and setting an example, so that people are motivated and stay invested.
And so a separate application for each item, maybe 2 small, 1 large.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, Cyril.
So, you know, I spoke with Senator Dodd quite a bit during this whole process. He wants to see something happening. I would put that to everybody here. Do things that are visible, do things that are really going to help your FSC, and communicate back to them the things that you are doing and things that you're getting done because of these funds. If you want to get any more money, it's going to be because the people in that room who were very generous, and all the people that we got to underwrite things, are seeing activity happen. So I would push it, and I haven't heard this at all from your conversation, push it to try to find things in your area that are visible, that are going to make a difference, and you can get a lot of bang for your buck. We can monetize this by doing some marketing around it also. And I think Senator Dodd wants to do more of these. So don't, you know, but he's not going to do more of them unless he can see tremendous value is happening from the money he has. So this all has to get spent, as far as I'm concerned, this fire season. So it proves that it was working. And the benefit that I keep hearing is it's got flexible funds. Flexible funds are really, really important because there's no restrictions. And Christopher kept saying that. Find the creative stuff, find the things that are being smart, and try to drive on those things. And I can help people for if they have questions on what things they can do, because we do them.
Well, visibility
great
also,
input,
Cyril, a lot of it's good on the ground, but I also have to say, if you're nascent and you only have 5 people who are actively involved, and you increase that to 200, right? We can still advertise the deliverables and the impact. So stay creative about it. And
I think it's important people to know that we will be, I mean, all of these applications, all these ideas, we're going to be providing that feedback to Dodd as well. Like I like Cyril's idea of, you know, get the information back to Dodd, but don't feel like that's on you. Like that's kind of on us. We're going to be the clearinghouse. We're going to take all this stuff. We're going to make sure we report out to him and his team. Here's what your generosity and your fundraising helped us to do, because I mean, that's what, that's important to those guys, right? I mean, they want to be able to show that they did it and that it translated into real work on the ground.
Oh, to that end, let me put a spotlight on Sherry and our social media. We are very, very fortunate that she got funded to be the county coordinator and get the news out about all of you, make us all effective. And our social media is looking for content. And Sherry and I both think that, you know, we have some ideas, but the real meat is showcasing what you've all done. It will also help galvanize the people in your neighborhoods with real world examples.
Before and after
please,
pictures are great.
Before and after pictures, real world stuff. We would really like to showcase each FSC and your work on the ground.
And to that end, if Eric Hernandez is still on here, he's doing really well, and with the county, Napa County Fire Department social media. So, and there's a lot of opportunity to cross pollinate between the NCFF and the NCFD, so we can do that as well. Send pictures to him.
Time lapse videos are good. Before and after time lapse videos, those are all good things.
Your logos, some of you have them, some don't. That's why there's money in there for that. We would very much like to put a focus on each of you and allow you to share that among your members to increase engagement.
We can also put those on your sub page that hangs off of our website page too. So
can we
videos and
open it
pictures.
up for some questions? I know.
Go for it.
Let's be sure we have a chance for everybody to comment and get their questions on the table. And
Right, Lane, you are actually the talk show hostess.
The question keeper. It's hard to do this on Zoom because especially when we have so many pages of people. So if you, I think you can raise your hand or something.
Yeah, there's a hand. There's some chat questions already, Elaine.
Yeah,
There's a Susan Derringer question. Did we field that one?
Yeah, I haven't field that one. Basically, it's asking if we've got another meeting to fill out the actual form. And what do you all think? We try to have this meeting monthly. So if we did, what are we, the first Wednesday of the month? Do you want to do would it make sense to do the first Wednesday of February maybe and continue this conversation?
Yeah, given that we would like them to have the finals in 3 weeks later, that makes good sense.
That makes sense. Okay. So first Wednesday of the month at 5 and of February. And we try to, and the goal is to just have, shall we declare this a standing first Wednesday of the month meeting?
Sure.
Okay, let's do. That makes good. That's a good declaration. So first Wednesday of the month, we'll have this go over the forms. And then if you all, I have found the more people that can come and participate, the better. So I know this invitation went out to a larger audience, and I'm requesting if you have more people that you want to add to this FSC Leads mailing list, please send them my way, and then I'll share them as well with Sherry. We're running 2 different mailing lists for these, one at the NCFF and then one on my laptop. Okay, so that's so then I had some questions. I just wrote some basic things down. So Eric Hernandez, it sounds like Eric's pretty busy and doesn't really have, he's got Barry Essa tying him up, and then he doesn't really open up until, it sounded like May or June. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, would be good, Elaine, to see if anybody wants to raise their hand for questions other than the Eric questions, which seemed to be we were going to have another possibility for a meting with Eric.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I was just thinking about consultants and supplements. Let's see, please.
The deeper we get into the season, the more busy Eric's going to get. So it's better to pull him into questions, or rather to participate in stuff now, because basically as of the 1st of April, it starts to get really busy for him, according to my conversation with him earlier today.
Okay.
Chris?
I don't know how to read these questions because I can't see the questions and I can't see you guys. So how about we?
Is there a question sheet somewhere that?
Is there?
Well, you can open up your chat.
Yeah, open up your chat. And
I have the chat, but I'm not seeing any. I'm just seeing the.
Yeah, I skimmed the questions, Joe, and I think most of them have been answered, but I think those who did questions on chat or those still on the call can raise their hand. That's the best way probably to follow up. And then Joe had a great suggestion that anybody who has a question that isn't answered in this call certainly should forward the question to Elaine, and then we'll be able to have further discussion after the call.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. No other questions?
No questions.
Amazing.
Good.
But we did a lot of
dinner time.
Q&A along the way.
Yeah, we did.
And
Everyone's hungry.
it's 6:20, so we've actually
Cyril just
gone
brought
a
us
little
dinner.
gone a little overtime, but we really appreciate everyone attending. This is important stuff, and we look forward to working with you on these applications. So in the meantime,
Well, and probably also will be, it sounds like there's going to be a fair amount of collaboration even on your project, floating your project ideas.
exactly.
Lots of communication on that.
Is there anybody that wants to, like, if people have questions directly, I'm happy to field questions. If I can put my cell number here on the chat if you have questions about, submitting your application or whatever.
That would be great.
Usually just shoot me a text is probably the best way. Somebody else just asked a question in the chat feature.
I don't.
Oh, sorry. I think that's just to me.
So I think Joe and Elaine, maybe you can field the questions. So you're a central location for the questions so that everybody knows who to contact, so that we've got the questions coming in and we can answer them or set up a phone call to discuss.
I think we should go ahead and wrap it up. We've got people dropping off, and I think time for dinner.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
New Year. Thanks all.
Hi all.
Bye-bye.
Cipher. Do you know if anyone's Suzanne? Oh, Suzanne.
Good job, team. Great presentation.
Oh, good. Thanks, Peter. Okay, good. Want to chat to you about angling later.
I'm happy to chat about angling anytime. Just want to let Jerry know I found those napkins, by the way. So sorry about that.
Good.
I have my auto mute on, but
Peter,
anyway.
Peter,
So.
I see Suzanne Pavitt still. Hey, Suzanne, how's it going?
I just was going to tell Elaine, I sent the same question to her. So I'm still trying to find, and hey, Sherry, nice to see you. It's been a long time. How are you? I'm still trying to figure out do we have anyone that's really focusing on the Eastern Ridge? Behind me, we were the last stop for the glass fire physically and literally on our property, unfortunately. But there was, after the 2017 fires, there was a very focused effort to get fire access up through Deer Park and along that backside. And then of course, life went on and then here we are again. Is there anyone, I'm trying to figure out how to connect all the moving parts of connecting that all the way up to Old Lolly Told Road. Like that whole corridor right there needs to be connected. And had we had access, we wouldn't all have lost everything on the Eastern Ridge. So I think Calistoga FSC, I'm concerned, might be too general and broad for that.
I agree. I think you have to zoom in with the owners and the landowners and maybe form a smaller FSC. That's based on people who are specifically aware of the issues. And I don't know.
Is this basically north of the Eastern Ridge, north of Bell Canyon? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
This is it's like basically Old Toll Road and south on the Eastern Ridge. So
kind of down towards the dump area.
Yes, exactly.
Like Clover Flats or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's not an FSC within that. And you've got Calistoga proper, and then I fall just outside of the town limits, but we were literally where they took a stand to stop the glass fire on our property. It was successful in keeping it from going into Calistoga, not so successful of us losing everything, but there's no access behind us. I mean, to even try and save my neighbor, they went through my property and they were moderately successful there. But there's this whole uncharted territory. And I don't know from a map perspective where the access road from Deer Park stopped after the 17 fires and where the Palisade, the old
Oh, Shane, what's the hiking trail? Oat Hill Mine Trail, excuse me. The Oat Hill Mine Trail access continued. And so there's somewhere that those two stop. If we could connect those two, then they've got complete access along that back ridge behind Cloverfield landfill, behind all the people here on the eastern side of Silverado Trail.
It looks like there's a road that goes up to Highmark Vineyard.
I don't even know who that is.
I mean, there is sort of the big, and then Maple Springs Road is a road that goes all the way up to Oat Hill Mine Trailhead. I mean, I don't know. That looks like a dozer trail to me.
Yeah, so they were trying to work there, but it doesn't seem to be connected all the way to Deer Park.
It's definitely not connected to Deer Park.
Yeah, but they
It
started it.
goes
in
Oat Hill Mine, right? Oat Hill Mine swings all the way around. Oh, I see. That's where it comes out of Etna Springs and connects to Pope Valley Road.
Yes.
And then
yes.
Wild Lake's up in there too, isn't it?
Who?
Wild Lake is across.
I
that
think,
way?
I don't know where that is, but I think so. So
That's in that zone.
So
Other
there,
than Anchorage.
there should have been what we were hoping when they put when they started the access roads after 17 up Crystal Springs and all that area, was that access road was going to continue. It would go behind Calistoga Ranch, behind Cloverfield landfill, up behind, my property, the other properties, all the way up along Kelly Fleming. Then it would ultimately go up to Old Lolly Toll Road. And of course that didn't happen. So what I'm trying to figure out is, that's a Herculean effort, but is it conceivable? I mean, I know the property owners on my left and my right, but I don't, on my immediate left and right, but I don't know everybody on either block.
You've got Vengi Vineyards and
Yep, I've got Bengay, I've got
Barlow.
Yep, John Cooper, the Robinsons. And then if you continue going north, Joe and Elaine, I think what I've heard is that the folks up on Old Lolly Toll Road have done a breakout to do their own thing.
Aren't they part of Calistoga? Because I spoke to a bunch of people from Old Lolly Toll.
That's Eric. That's the guy I talked to. Eric Carlson, I think, is up in there.
Is that who?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can connect with him. I've been connecting with him recently. He's got a company. He's really sharp, and definitely is worth connecting.
Who's the other guy? Wordle.
Angus
No.
Wordle?
No. Shane, what's the guy's name? Steve. What's his last name?
I think it's Workle.
Workle?
Work was Felicia Whitetek and.
Yeah, Felicia Wojtek and oh my gosh, what is his name? Steve, yeah, Steve Rasmussen.
Steve Rasmussen. Yeah, he was on our
A
call.
lot too.
He was on our call last month.
So Steve is very active, but he did a breakout group and he's just kind of focused up in that. It still doesn't connect it. So it's like, I love that people are doing, but I feel like we've got to keep everybody to connect it, or we're just going to have all these little factions that are going to cause us just still problems. So
I mean, your area is a tricky area because there,
Yeah.
I mean, from what there's Rattlesnake Ridge, which looks
Yes.
like that looks like there's some legacy dozer work that's there that goes all the way up to Grouse Spring,
okay.
and Summit Spring. So I think those would be, I mean, this would be probably the kind of thing, I mean, to do this kind of work in that area, this is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know.
So these are not small projects. They're all super worthy projects, no doubt. But there is a vast stretch there of all that. Then there's kind of nothing between there and Maple Springs, which is your Oat Hill Mine, all the
Yes.
way over to Old Lolly Toll Road. So
And then what continues towards, what, is there any kind of access even roughed in behind Calistoga Ranch, Clover, I can never remember what it is, Clover Flats?
Clover Flats.
Yeah.
Well, that's that winery, Highmark Vineyard. There's some kind of a road that goes all the way up to a fairly substantial vineyard up there. And it looks like there is some sort of old dozer work behind Clover Flats, which, I mean, that area obviously got burned pretty well.
I think we just need, can we get a map, Elaine? Can we get something where we've got a map of that whole segment so then we could start that task
So
of filling in?
CAL FIRE has maps that show all of the dozer trails, and they have them overlays based on the fire that they were put in.
Oh,
So that's something that JC Greenberg could get access to, or Chief Jason Martin, because I would imagine that in previous fires or in that fire, they surely sent dozers out there. Highmark Vineyard, Horse Pond. I mean, there's definitely roads around that area, and it's kind of like a big bowl up there.
yeah. So are those those must be on the side of Pope Valley. They must be over on the other
They're
side.
sort of due north. They're due
Yeah.
north of the refuge, the Clover Flats or whatever.
Okay. All right.
And are you
So
just
that-
looking at a satellite view of this, Joe? When you're looking this up, where are you going?
I mean, I just got on Google Maps and I'm doing a flyover in 3D.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh,
where-
sure. Well, there you go.
There you go. I'm like, where do you do that? I'm on Google Maps and I can't.
If you have the OnX Hunt app.
Yeah, Onyx
too,
Hunt is good.
that
That shows you all the
shows-
property owners.
Yeah.
What is that,
trails.
Sherry? What is
It's
that?
on
Will you type it? Will you type it in this chat and tell me?
Yeah, it's on X Hunt.
It's an app you can get on your phone.
It's for hunters who basically go onto
Fantastic.
other people's property.
Oh, okay.
But it,
Um,
yeah,
So is this other gentleman you mentioned, Eric, is he connected and working with Steve Rasmussen? Are they in?
He knows Steve Rasmussen. He knows Cyril Chapelet. He's a retired investment banker who moved up here and then he got hit in the Tubbs fire. He lost, I think he said 17,000 trees. And his son is a CAL FIRE firefighter. So he started a company called the Clean Burn Company, I guess as eternal entrepreneurs do. And they bought some of those burn boxes that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so they do that. They do land, preparation, fuel load reduction, all that stuff. I think he's up to 20 employees now and is like working it. So
He's actually been reaching out to me here in England to get some work. That guy's serious about what he's doing.
yeah, I keep thinking we should get him on the board. When I met him, I'm like, oh my God, you're awesome. He's doing it. And his whole sense is like, we can't wait around. We just got to start doing it.
Yeah, he's got a good thing going because he gets his son and his son's CAL FIRE buddies to do fire mitigation work like in their off season, and they charge a decent price. So that would actually be maybe a good vendor for us.
That's an amazing idea.
He's actually on the vendor page.
Okay,
And
good.
What's cool about him too is his with those burn boxes, it allows you to dispose of debris, without all times of year because it doesn't create the burn hazard.
Yeah, it's called the air curtain. Basically, it has a blower that it's essentially like your fireplace blower, so it's reburning the hot gases.
But you have to get the problem with those we're finding is the elevations. We can't get it out. We can't get all the burn stuff out of 23 acres down to have someone do that work. That's the challenge.
Yeah, you should definitely talk to him because he's restoring a big chunk. And I thought actually an interesting thing that interesting talk because so many people got hit was, what does restoration look like? What do we need to do? Okay, now what? Because I had talked to one forester who said it can take 100 years before these things grow back, and you have to shepherd them and guide them, and it's a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will. If you, Elaine, if you could connect me with Eric, maybe, or
yeah, I'll do that. Let's see.
I've been trying to connect with Steve, and then thank you, Sherry. I've got the Onyx Hunt and Onyx Off Roads. I'll check that out, and I'll just try to start reaching out to everyone. I think we're gonna have to figure out. I mean, I don't know that I've got the wherewithal to start a new FSC, but certainly within the Calistoga, we need to make sure this is a priority because it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Because you got Diamond Mountain on the other side and Cordham Canyon and all that. I mean, they've got it on that side, but we don't have any of the access on this side. So
yeah,
we're only halfway there.
Yeah, you've got to come get people engaged.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, great to see you. Happy New Year.
All right, you guys as well. Take care.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Peter. Oh, Peter.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, yay. So I've been talking with Kelly Duckhorn about helping out with Angwin FSC,
Cool.
and she's on it. I'm
Awesome.
connecting her with another woman, a younger woman named Angela, who's got a vineyard up there called like Angwin Mountain Vineyard or Angwin Vineyards, Angwin Estate, something. Her name is Angela Hensel.
I don't know her.
Yeah, anyway, well, she looks about your age and she's interested in getting involved. And so we're trying to basically help Margot kind of more transition where she's less active and bringing
Mhm.
more people to kind of
Perfect.
beef it up. And then
Perfect.
Kelly to be connected with the Adventist community and then the county city leadership and all that.
Yep. No, I'm
Cool.
really happy to hear that she wants to be involved for a while. I've been talking with Kelly for a couple of years and she's very passionate about this issue and her energy needed to go somewhere. And at the time, the Anglo Fire Safe Council wasn't quite the right fit for her, but it's seeming like it might work in that direction. So that's a good solution to this issue we're having here in Angwin. I'm glad to see that panning out.
Great. Oh, good. I was going to say, and then if any networking you can do or, help with for people, and I think the college, I don't know why the college hasn't been more engaged, but, I think they just need more hands on deck.
Sure. Yeah, pretty much. And the college does. I mean, the college has been good about sending out our messaging and things like that. They haven't been putting as much, I'm basically what the college is putting into this, Amy Warwick and I, but we have been, helping to spread the word and growing the organization as we could.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it was interesting to hear Gretchen say, oh, I thought, I want to see a couple hundred members. I was like, okay, you go, girl. So, okay, well, cool. So I don't know, hopefully that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. I've gotten everyone brought together. Now we just need them to actually start working together.
Okay. I think we might have a meeting this month coming up in a week or two. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. And so it'll be interesting to see everybody's ideas for the SNAP Firewise grant. It's so awesome that we're now in a place to start to give cash back to the FSCs because that used to be a big part of the program, as you know.
Yeah, and now it's even better and more cash. So I think it'll make everyone happy.
Yeah, and now we've got more support and, in terms of, environmental and project, outlining and whatnot. So no, good things in the future for NCFF.
That's great. I'm psyched. Okay, well, cool. Do are you all having, I thought Margot had told me that we've spent $1 million in Angwin this year. And then she said there was another $2 million coming over the next couple of years. Is that?
Well, that's not quite right. So we are on the tail end of executing two $1 million projects from the 5-year plan. And we've got one more $1 million project right on the horizon.
Okay, so a total of $3 million worth of projects.
That's what's off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the 5-year plan to see if there's any past that, but I think that's about right.
And how much involvement from the FSC do you need on now?
On which one?
On any of them? On
any of them? Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'd say the biggest roles for the individual FSCs in some of these larger projects is going to be helping to corral landowner